Good morning. Good morning. If you're getting here early, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Gonna be a bit of a wonky live stream situation over the course of the next week. Doing a lot of traveling. And gonna try to get as many going as possible. All right, almost got things set up here. All right, there we go. Oh, I just realized the volume was bad. Wow. Yep. My bad. All right, we're locked in now. Take a look at XRP's price, still holding at this critical level right here. Come across right here, and we're essentially still in that turnaround structure. I was listening to a bunch of TA analysts the other night. Yeah, I got the volume. I was listening to a bunch of TA analysts last night who are all looking at essentially this bounce as being obviously very important. We really don't want to fall through here. I don't personally think we will, but kind of that zone we need to be watching. If we break through there, we're back down to looking at this $2 region, which we would really prefer not to be at. We would much rather be pushing up here and trying to make some progress at the 280 mark. So it's a bit of a consolidation right here. Kind of those next levels I'm watching at the moment. CME futures went live today, which is definitely very exciting. I think it's about the reaction I expected from the market. I think a lot of people were expecting XRP just go on some massive parabolic rip the second futures went live, but you know, that's not really how these futures really work. So appreciate the compliment on the video last night, Clay. You know, you never know what's going to happen. Actually, too, I don't know if there's a specific time they're live. It might be that they go live at 9:30 Eastern. Let's see if it has anything here. Futures starting May 19th. So they're starting May 19th. I'm just wondering what the market is like on those futures in terms of timing. Does anyone know if futures are open 24/7? Let's see. Yeah, I mean, the speculation alone could impact it. So 8 a.m. Eastern Monday. So yep, those, if they opened at open today, unless they have some special opening thing they do, then they would be open. It's the speculation alone, right? So if the XRP futures went live and there was like some insane amount of volume flowing through, then that would potentially have a big impact on people looking at XRP. So it can have an impact, but it also is very important to understand that it doesn't inherently have any impact on the supply and demand dynamics. Just saw this class action lawsuit filed against MicroStrategy for alleging misleading statements about its Bitcoin strategy. So this is pretty interesting here. I'm trying to find more about this right here, because I just see the headline that a class action lawsuit was filed against Strategy, which a class action lawsuit is kind of like, it's important to conceptualize this. A class action lawsuit can be a bunch of XRP holders trying to take down Strategy, right? And like just putting in a random lawsuit. So nothing overly notable here. We have to take a look at what the actual suit is. Okay, so the defendants are alleging that misleading statements with respect to and or failed to disclose information with respect to the anticipated profitability of the Bitcoin-focused investment strategy in treasury options and the various risks associated with Bitcoin volatility and the magnitude of those losses. Okay, very interesting. So essentially, if we take a look and let's take a look at what MicroStrategy has been putting out in terms of financials. This was always big. Always been my biggest thing about MicroStrategy. It's not that like what they're doing is like inherently, in my opinion, wrong. It's the fact that they don't make any money doing it. Like obviously Bitcoin is appreciating, but if they're never going to sell the Bitcoin, that's not a realized profit. So they have to figure out a way to monetize the actual Bitcoin. So let me pop this open real quick and we can take a look at this together, because it is interesting that someone's coming out and actually suing MicroStrategy over this, with the obviously very important disclosure here, right, that this is a class action lawsuit. So you don't always want to read too much into just a class action lawsuit. Anyone can file a class action lawsuit, and it just depends if it's got any merit to it or not. All right, so it's probably going to be a little hard for you guys to see this, but we'll pull it up. If we're taking a look at MicroStrategy's financials, we can see that their revenue is going down, so they're losing revenue right now. Their profitability is getting worse. They're spending more money to create less profitability. They're losing more money. Yeah, so the financial stats are not going in their favor here in terms of profitability. So revenue's down, net income is down massively, diluted EPS down, profit margin down, missing on revenue, missing on EPS. So I think the shareholders are kind of like, look, you painted this picture that it was all rosy and we just go into these Bitcoin strategies and you just start printing money. And obviously that's not the case, right? There's clearly been a lack of ability to actually do something with the underlying Bitcoin being acquired, right? Like that's the big problem. Like they're getting all this Bitcoin, but it doesn't seem like there's any plan with the Bitcoin to do anything. So the more they do nothing with Bitcoin, the more MicroStrategy just trades as an ETF, where it doesn't make really any sense for it to be trading at any kind of larger valuation to the Bitcoin they hold. And in fact, likely makes more sense for them to be trading at a discount to the amount of Bitcoin they hold. So we've now got this class action lawsuit coming in. So misleading statements on their Bitcoin strategy. It doesn't look like we have a whole lot more information. Yeah, doesn't look like we have a whole lot more information than that right now. It's just people saying, hey man, like you never talked about all these potential things that could be an issue. Good news equals dump. I don't know what's going on with the broader market right now. Let me take a quick look what's going on with the broader market. See if we're seeing a sell-off in the stock market as well. Yeah, it seems like an overall pretty big down day. I'm not sure why things are selling off right now. Ripple announces Zandbank and Mamo as the first blockchain-based enabled payment clients in the UAE. Okay, so Ripple getting adoption in the UAE, which is great to see. See what we got in the chat. Ryan Wolf, thank you so much. He said, everyone take a moment to hit a like and subscribe button. Thank you so much, Brian. Credit downgrade reaction, but Bitcoin sends historically. The Bitcoin sends it historically on the news. Yeah, we did have that credit downgrade. I don't pay too much attention to the credit downgrades. I mean, to be honest, if you look at the history of them doing these credit downgrades, like they're not very accurate, to be honest with you. Like we didn't have a credit downgrade before like 08, and then like so typically they do the downgrades right at like random political times because no one can actually predict what is going to happen in regards to a black swan event. And then that just misses, right? That typically misses the important time for actually that credit downgrade to happen. So the credit downgrade is slightly interesting, but it always looks to me to be a little bit more political than actually like, oh no, we're now aware of this thing that's going to be potentially an issue. Who's talking about raising rates? Looks like we got a bunch of bots in the chat too, unfortunately. If anyone can take a minute and help clear those out, would definitely appreciate that. Is Japan's economy hurting the cryptocurrency market? I think global weakness and uncertainty as a whole is. And we've talked about this. That's one of the biggest things that is really out of is something that we really can't control, is the global macro uncertainty. And those are things that are just always popping up and can always potentially be issues. is one of those things that we really can't do much about. We're kind of just subject to whatever happens. Let's take a look at this not financial advice.crypto. Actually, we'll hold on that real quick. Okay, so the futures are live. The XRP futures are live. Very cool to see that playing out. I know a lot of people want that to be some instantaneous pump on the price, but as I talked about in my video last night, right, everyone knew that these futures were going live. So, oh, MicroStrategy buys more Bitcoin. There you go. Class action lawsuit, but they're buying more Bitcoin. Here we go. Ripple now helps businesses in 6 countries move money cross borders in minutes using XRP. Dubai, US, Brazil, Mexico, Australia, and Switzerland with the Bank of... So they're just adding those 2 new banks to the UAE. So it looks like the UAE is now a live corridor, which is awesome to see. More and more financial institutions in all of these other countries looking to add XRP to the payment stack. So very cool to see that taking place. Just in the relatively short amount of time I've been following XRP since 2017-ish. It's insane the amount of adoption we've seen on these higher levels. Go back to the charts real quick. Obviously, XRP is still kind of at this region where we really want to see hold. I want to take a look at Bitcoin dominance real quick, see what's happening there. So we're still well within this channel, right? This channel that Bitcoin dominance is in has really been that thing that we've wanted to see break down. But we're still very, very well within this Bitcoin dominance trends as it stands right now. It's really crazy to see this trading pattern, this channel going on for so long. Like, this is something that I feel like you do not see very often. Just like a defined channel like this. And it's been doing this since August of 22. So we've just had this huge steady increase in Bitcoin dominance. I mean, up 65% since 2022. I do think this trend will end at some point, and I do think it's to the downside. But I mean, right now we're right in the heart line of this thing, right down the middle, and I don't know if I see any imminent, like, we need to crash back down a decent amount before we start putting pressure on the lower levels. I mean, decent amount. We probably need a 4 to 5% crash on Bitcoin dominance in order for this to really get pulled down. But this Bitcoin dominance chart is still extremely strong and very much in this upward trend. It looked like we might break back down right here. Stayed above it. Was hoping we could see a breakdown right here. Stayed above it. And we'll see if there's going to be a blow off the top and crash down, if we're just going to crash down. It's a very interesting chart, and I'm shocked that Bitcoin dominance has done what it's done thus far. Take a look at the dollar. The dollar is doing a little bit more as expected. It looks like we're getting a bit of a sell-off in the dollar right now after essentially we're retesting these 2015 2017 levels. So we're right at this longer term support. It will be very interesting to see how the dollar reacts here. I mean, this is a big level. It's always been my thesis that the dollar is going lower, especially over the next couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a pretty substantial drop down here with the dollar and really revisit those 2015 lows, 2016 lows. We've done so much printing, devaluation, inflation in the economy, and the dollar and Bitcoin dominance actually are both really in longer term macro downtrend. So the dollar is relatively strong, but it's definitely got this slight slope to the downside. very similar to Bitcoin dominance, where you're just gradually losing strength of the dollar over time. We're kind of at the high part of that range right now. Every once in a while, we come up here, we start pressing on this high part, and then every once in a while, we come down here and start pressing on this low part. So I do think over the next couple of years and months, we probably revisit down here. Oh, I just realized I never even got I never even put fiat leak. Whoops. Thought the screen looked a little funny. There we go. Let's see what else we got in the chat. Jason. How do you balance between speaking to people new to XRP and long-term holders because new people want the dips and drops? You got me into XRP. Oh, thank you, Jason. And I'm glad. Oops. Sorry, one sec. Yeah, the thing is like, I don't know. You just focus on different things, right? Like longer term XRP holders are typically more focused around the thesis of like the long term value of XRP, where a lot of the newer holders are more just trying to wrap their head around like what XRP is in general, right? Like, why is XRP ultimately going to be valuable? What is valuable about something like XRP? So you're just answering much different questions depending on the person you're speaking to. But generally, a lot of the same points apply either way, which is kind of the important thing to understand. It's really all of what that person is capable of digesting at that given moment, right? Like if someone's just learning about XRP, going into like advanced features on how the XRP ledger works from a security perspective is probably not the place to start, but just focusing on moving money quickly is a much easier way to do it. So it just all depends on who you're talking to. I always like to try to find something that person can relate to, right? Like figure out something that's a pain point in that person's life, or figure out something that's important to them and see if I can apply that to XRP, because typically they can see that a lot easier because they have firsthand experience or knowledge on something that might be a problem in their own life. Like for my dad, for example, he's been in the real estate business for a long time. And one of the issues that he always has is like waiting on funds to settle in order to close a property, right? Like he'll be trying to close a property and he'll be waiting for this money to settle over escrow and all these different accounts. And it's just kind of like, oh, well, what if you didn't have to wait for the money to show up? What if the second that person wanted the money to show up, the money showed up? And he was like, oh, well, that would make everything 1,000 times easier, because our problem is everyone in the transaction wants something to go through and we just can't move the money fast enough. Like that's a very obvious example of why this technology would be very useful, and that's something that resonates with him. For someone who's not in real estate, it might be a less appealing answer to them, because they might not see those issues that someone else runs into. DAI had an interesting video today. I'm gonna throw that up and give it a listen.
But this accelerates that in many cases. So I think that
Sorry, I have a feeling that was really loud for you guys.
we're seeing a return toward neutral reserve assets as a significant holding of central bank assets. So basically, in a world where the biggest bond markets are prone to persistent debasement with lower interest rates, and in a world where they can be confiscated, gold in the central bank's own self-custody is attractive as a sovereign asset. Around the margins, Bitcoin's interesting. It's only a $2 trillion asset, so it's like a tenth of the size of the gold market. It's more volatile. It's only 16 years old, but among some smaller countries, Bhutan, El Salvador, it's interesting to them. It's also a trading mechanism for countries that are sanctioned. It's an open source settlement mechanism that they can turn to, and so I do think we're seeing a upshift in the appreciation of neutral reserve assets. Which, going back to that Stephen Myron paper, he called that out. He said basically, if we make the treasury less attractive as a reserve holding to make the dollar less overvalued, then it's probably this could benefit some other currencies, but it'll probably primarily benefit neutral reserve assets. And he mentions gold and cryptocurrencies, with Bitcoin being the by far the dominant one. And so I think that's the world we're going in, a more multipolar world that is then tied together with some of these neutral reserve assets.
I think we need another Bretton Woods, or at least we need to be thinking in terms of a neutral reference point, a global unit of account. I mean, something like a gold standard, even updated to reflect a digital world and fast-moving financial flows.
Hi, my name is Bradley Kimes from Investment Perspectives and Cryptonaires documentary. I wanted to ask a question about globalization. If you could talk about the idea of the old concept of the banker coin and a neutral asset being in place of a global reserve status of the dollar, and possibly that being XRP.
What you're asking for is whether there's a possibility of a global currency. And to some extent, that's what Libra was trying to do. And as I understand it, that's different from what XRP is trying to do. And the reason is as follows. As soon as you go to maintaining the value, right, some kind of stable coin, a whole set of regulatory concerns get triggered. I have to make sure that there is corresponding financial or real assets backing this notional value that they seek to maintain. That looks a lot more like a bank, right? Because you're promising some claims which are fixed. And that requires regulation for reasons I just talked about.
Yeah, so our view is that these digital assets really become supplemental to the existing family of currencies, right? So every country still needs its own fiat currency for all kinds of reasons that I won't get into. It's very complicated, right? And I actually think that the big four, the yen, the euro, the dollar, the RMB, they actually, I think, come stronger in this world that we're going into, partially because of digital assets. Okay. That these digital assets actually contribute to a world that's more interoperable, where more people around the globe can get access to these big four. And most of global commerce is done in the big four. So I think you have a bifurcation going on. Those big four get stronger. I think some of the smaller currencies, maybe even more of the very small fiat currencies, become less relevant, maybe even disappear. A country could have its own fiat, but still use one of the big four.
Like Montenegro, right?
Absolutely. But I think then where the digital assets fit in, like things like XRP and Bitcoin, they're kind of in that mid-range. They become, I think, like the Singapore dollar or the Swiss franc, and they become useful in kind of lubricating the world to make it easier for those big four to get in the hands of people all around the world. So that's useful. And there might also be things like applications and devices that maybe primarily use one of those digital assets. So that's kind of the view we have. So I think in that world, countries should be less threatened by what's going on.
Very interesting. Great video of a lot of different clips over time of people talking about kind of the world we're heading into, where these neutral free floating assets exist within the system and are kind of just there for people to use and get access to for their properties, which is neutral instant settlement anywhere around the world. Like that in itself is a very powerful value proposition, extremely valuable proposition that I don't think is given enough attention. Like the idea that you could settle transactions globally in a decentralized way on a national scale is extremely important. And the fact that that is now being added to the financial system via these assets, I mean, kind of like what Chris Larson was saying there at the end, is like something that will add utility to a system with a technology that has never existed before. And it's just about building applications right now to allow that liquidity to be easily accessible. Yeah, sending XRP is great, especially when you're used to sending other cryptocurrency transactions. I mean, it just feels like it's so funny that a lot of people can't just see, like, if you've never sent XRP, just do it. It's like insane. It's absolutely insane. And it's been that way and will only get better. CME is already live. CME is already live from my understanding. So that's what I made a video about last night, just making sure people knew that just because the CME was live doesn't mean that, oh, boom, like now this is happening and this is happening, right? There's a lot more to it than that. A lot of people picking up on the MicroStrategy case. I don't know. I need to see more on this MicroStrategy case. It is very interesting, right? It is very interesting for what MicroStrategy is being called out for, but I don't know what the impact on it is. Clearly, with it not being a government agency and it just being class action, I mean, it's just a very easy case for MicroStrategy to settle, right? Like they just say, okay, well, we get it. We shouldn't have done this. Here's a couple $1 million now. Get out of our face. We want to continue on buying Bitcoin. So it's just hard for me to see how it really ever amounts to much, but Dark Pool's working really hard today. Well, the whole market seems to be down right now. So it's not just like an XRP thing, right? So it's important to point that out. The whole market is kind of down this morning. I'm not sure what the reason is. Doesn't really seem like there is really a general reason. Maybe it's just waiting for some trade deals to get done like we talked about earlier, right? The market pumped pretty big. Pull up the chart real quick. The market pumped pretty big on the belief that we were going to see there's a lot of tweets going around right about here of trade deals happening. And then we had that big leg up, and then the market, I don't think, has seen the trade deals it's waiting for. Maybe we get another pump up as soon as we get some clarity on what those deals look like and when they're being implemented. Debt downgrade. I talked about the debt downgrade a little earlier. It's not something I pay too much attention to. They're like debt downgrades, in my opinion, are a little bit more political than anything else. I love Trump talking about taking trade with Russia. It's just good to see that global trade is improving, and hopefully at a very quick rate. And hopefully at a very quick rate. Yeah, I mean, I'm not overly, I don't pay too much attention to moon cycles in trading. It's not really my thing, but if it's something that there's been correlation around and you think it's an accurate way to watch the market, I'm not here to tell you that that's incorrect. It's just not really something I look for, right? I look for more of the fundamental side of things. When is the 100K plaque coming? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't heard anything from YouTube yet. Maybe I have to reach out to them and ask. We'll see. I was hoping it would just like show up at my house and I'd be like, oh, there it is. But I haven't seen anything that interesting as of that. I do want it. Like I thought it was like, oh, you get 100K and it's like, boom. They don't even give you a YouTube premium subscription. Here they are blasting me with ads and I have 100K followers and I don't even get free YouTube premium. It's like, no, you have to pay for that. It's like, geez, can I at least get free YouTube premium at like 50K or 100K? I also think YouTube might try to say like, oh, because you talk about like this topic and this topic, oh, that disqualifies you. So we'll see what kind of tricks they try to pull on that. Yeah, well, it just depends on how XRP reacts to these levels, right? If we can hold this current level right here, very important spot, then it's probably the direction continues to be upward, but we've really got to hold this level. We had a big downtrend. We got reversal confirmation. We're retesting the reversal confirmation, and you just need to see that uptrend now, right? You got to get some volatility to the upside. You need some catalyst to make that happen. And it just seems like the market's very focused on macro catalyst right now, and there just hasn't been a lot of developments there. We haven't seen those rate cuts we've been waiting for take place. We want the rate cuts to happen. We want trade deals to land. If we get rate cuts and trade deals, I think the market's going much, much higher. All right, guys, with that said, I think we hit the vast majority of it. We'll see what happens throughout the rest of the day. Guys, thank you so much for coming. It looks like Abs just got here. Yes, Abs, we will see everyone next week in Vegas. Guys, thank you so much for coming. Make sure, if you haven't already, check out the Apex Singapore event. Really appreciate everyone for stopping by. We'll have live streams throughout the rest of the week, so hopefully things pick up a little bit in terms of excitement. Guys, thank you so much for coming, and for now,